Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today I'm going to talk about a comp called Protect the McCree. I know I brought it up at the end of my last video about pharmacy, and it raised some questions, so I'm going to go more into depth about that comp specifically and how to play it here. The composition does consist of McCree, Winston, Diva, Briggs, Lucio, and then either Zenyatta or Mercy. The real strengths of the comp is it has really good medium range sight line control as well as pickoff potential through those Mercy boost or Discord boosted McCree headshots. You can cancel some team fights with those, as well as being pretty much undiveable. The comp has two different stuns, it has three sources of healing, and it has two dive tanks, which, as you know, dive tanks are better than heavy tanks for driving off dive DPS. Even though it does use dive tanks, I prefer to tell people to think of this comp as a deathball comp. It should be played with everyone really tight rather than spread out, and your tanks are only really going to leave the composition, use their leap, use their boosters to go push back a single person, be that a flanker taking a position that they don't like or a hit scan on high ground. They're rarely going to use those cooldowns offensively with the intent to kill. Using them for peel, of course, inside the death ball, totally different manner. They'll absolutely go for kills with those there. So the comp is looking to win by either canceling team fights with those picks from that boosted McCree, or by executing its combo play. And the combo that you'll be abusing a lot with this composition to punish even slight positional mistakes from the enemy tanks is going to be amped speed boost, move that whole group towards the tank in the blink of an eye, and then use one of your two stuns, flashbang or bash. Generally, you're going to want to bash if it's Diva. And then you should immediately get your Discord and Fan the Hammer off. With those four abilities going off, as well as just normal focus fire from your team, you're going to drop pretty much anyone you catch. Like I said, it's usually going to be tanks there. You do, however, want to be aware that Primal Rage or Nano Boost can turn around your combo. So definitely make sure you're tracking, watching for those ults. You can expect to get a kill and suddenly it doesn't come through because one of those ults go off. Still, good trade though. You've given up two abilities, either to force an ult or to get that man advantage. So if you've brought this comp out to counter Pharmacy, your win condition is usually going to be to take them out of the sky. Drop the Pharah, drop the Mercy, either or both. That's great. And then mop up the team fight from there. You're going to want to win through that pick potential that you have with your McCree. You're not worried about losing the poke battle because you have three sources of healing. You have a boost just like the Pharah has a boost, and your Diva can eat a couple rockets here and there. You really don't have much trouble winning that fight. You're, of course, also undiveable while doing this, as long as your team is making proper callouts and watching for them, as you do have those two stuns, etc., that we talked about earlier. That said, as I recommend pretty much any time we're talking about win conditions, you do want to mix it up. Well, generally, you want to take them out of the sky to win the battle first. If you see a positional mistake from tanks, something like that, you do want to mix it up occasionally and force team fight wins in other ways. And with this comp, your other good way to force a team fight win is to go execute your combo, even if there is a pharmacy in play. This stops you from being one-dimensional, makes it harder for the opponents to plan exactly how they want to take the next engagement if you don't always win in the exact same manner. If you're instead pulling this comp out against a pure dive composition that doesn't have significant poke, so that would be a Genji Tracer dive, a potentially Sombra Doomfist dive, Sombra Tracer, Sombra Genji, some sort of dive that doesn't have good range damage like a Soldier, Pharah, Widowmaker, even Hanzo. You're going to again be looking to win those fights by grouping up super tight so that you get value out of both of your stuns if the dive does come in. But the dive's generally not going to come in because they'll recognize you as undiveable, or at least they will after you punish them once or twice. So instead, what you're going to do is you're going to move around as a group. You're going to clear away flankers first and then go take the point. And if you're defending, you can hold the point, though generally it's going to be better to move up and take superior positioning. Do take that superior positioning as a group, though, as remember, against a dive team, you need to be clumped up as that death ball constantly. It's also perfectly fine to make your combo play against a full dive team. In fact, I recommend doing so, but you probably want to hold back with your stuns a little more than you would in other situations. And the reason for this is you're almost undiveable if you have both available, but if your flashbang gets eaten or you miss your bash and you don't get that significant lead or kill on a tank, you do open up a chink in the armor and you can, in some situations, then be dived. It's perfectly okay to amp speed boost onto someone, and then if it looks like you're not going to be able to get the stun for one reason or another, just hold it and back up to where you were before. You are not really going to be punished for using your speed boost too heavily in this comp, other than not having it available to make another play there. Finally, if you brought this comp out for the very meta reason of answering the anti-goats Sombra Doomfist dive comp, do be aware that Doomfist is looking to win the fight by either one-shotting your McCree, and that's what he wants to do the vast majority of the time, or if he can't get that off, he may be willing to go for the Brigs. Killing anyone else in your composition isn't really going to stop you. You can continue to win the fight, so he really needs one of those two kills. With that in mind, your diva should constantly be thinking about where Doomfist is and positioning herself between McCree and Doomfist so that she can body block that rocket punch. Briggs, of course, as always, should be looking to trade her bash with Doomfist. Perfectly fine for both of you to fall over in the middle of your death ball. The Doomfist will die and your Briggs should be just fine. As for this composition's weaknesses, we just touched on how it needs to keep McCree alive. If McCree falls, not just against Doomfist comps, but against really any comp, it's going to have trouble in the simplified fight, be that a 3v3, 4v4. If McCree's alive, it should do just fine. If McCree falls, we're going to run into problems. Outside of that, you should be aware that this comp can be run over by goats. It simply doesn't have the brawling power to keep up with goats or other super brawly type comps. Usually those will contain things like Reinhardt, Diva, Reaper, Junkrat, Mei, things along those lines. And it also doesn't have the poke to significantly hamper goats before the fight actually breaks out. McCree by himself will not be able to break a Rhine shield. Little extra help from Zen. Generally still not going to be enough to actually do much to that goats comp before they're on top of you. You may be tempted to swap the Winston and Diva in this comp for Rein or Zarya to strengthen the front line, make it harder to run over with goats. That's not actually going to work out, and the reason for that is if you swap your Winston and Diva for Rein Zarya, you now pretty much have a goats mirror match, except instead of an extra tank, you now have a McCree. That McCree's poke, as we just discussed, is not enough to do significant work before the fight starts, and McCree's not going to make up that value compared to a tank in the brawl with his flashbang, as he's not really going to be able to get good flashbangs off between Rhine Shield, Diva Matrix, and Zarya Bubbles. So if Goats comes at you or some other super strong brawl comp, go ahead, respect that this is a counter composition, and make your swaps. The same applies if you are running into double snipers on a long sight line map. They have advantage over you. They will be able to abuse you. That said, that's not a super big concern as it is both map dependent and snipers have fallen a bit out of flavor lately. So finally, given that Protect the McCree is a counter comp, not a bread and butter comp, do be willing to swap. You can't currently find the same level of success as a Protect the McCree team as you can as a Goats team or a Dive team in this current meta. That said, it is a very important comp to learn. It is super useful as the current meta does have a bit of a rock, paper, scissors theme going on with these three styles of play. And this one is useful for specifically answering those Sombra Doomfist dive comps. Anyway, if you have any questions and are viewing on Twitch, I'll be going live immediately following this broadcast, and I'll be happy to stay on as long as is necessary to answer them. If you're on YouTube, feel free to leave comments, tell me what you think, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks.